Everybody, welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, joined by the two best in the industry at analyzing injuries and getting you ready for this 11-game slate. From Underdog Fantasy, Justin Fan. From Established Run, Mike Gallagher. Justin, how are you on this fine Friday?
Another Friday, another crazy injury slate. That Wednesday was pretty crazy. You added a Jamal Murray to the health and safety protocols and kind of run it back with a lot of these same injuries. So a lot to get into.
Mike, how are you?
Good. Yeah, ready to have my heart broken from Miami closing line value bets. Fan and I both got. I took the Wizards -1. Ready for that. I'm just ready to lose it. With the way Miami CLB bets have gone.
The mole is in chat, ready to listen to us, ready to adjust the odds before we can bet. So always good to see the mole hanging out in chat as well. Let's get into it. 11 games. There's a lot to get into here. Let's start with that Miami situation, which is pretty dire now. No Tyler Hero, no Jimmy Butler, although he's not even listed on the injury report. Thanks, Miami. And then Bam Adebayo, who's listed as questionable, is per Spo considered more likely doubtful than questionable. So it sounds like we're going to be without Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo tonight. Justin, what does that leave for the rest of the Miami Heat to take on the Wizards?
That leaves 8 players. So we're expecting the starting lineup to be Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, and Nikola Jovic, with that bench being Duncan Robinson, Jamal Cain, and Dwayne Dedmon. And Spo had a quote yesterday saying, we have a lot of guys out, so we're going to play guys big minutes. That's where we are now, and we're going to get healthy bodies back soon. So we saw minutes on Wednesday, Kyle Lowry 36, Caleb Martin 38, Strus 35, Gabe Vincent 32. Would expect something similar today. Big minutes for Caleb Martin, big minutes for Lowry and Strus. And, you know, I'm kind of curious what that Jovic-Dedmon center split looks like. We saw them combined for 40 last game, 24 for Jovic and 16 for Dedmon. Jovic had an outstanding first quarter, was on fire, then was really quiet the rest of the way. I would expect Dedmon to have his minutes ramped up a little bit from 16. Would think that him coming off the bench last game was in order to manage his minutes. So maybe closer to 20 this game. They're so thin on bodies that we might see that center split a little closer to 48 this time rather than 40. Jovic is a tough sell. The per 36 numbers aren't that great. You know, internationally, like 7.5 rebounds per 36, 3.8 so far in a small sample in the NBA. And then the stocks aren't there. The assists are middling. So tough to really get excited about him, even if he had a really good first quarter. But the main headliners for me here are Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, and then Max Strus is obviously a really strong play as well. So those three garner a lot of attention. Gabe Vincent is also in the mix, but Lowry, Martin, and Strus for me.
Yeah, I think Vincent plays a lot though, and I actually disagree a little bit on the center stuff. I think Dedmon looks bad. He's so slow. He's playing with that foot thing. I think he's not going to play a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring freaking Orlando Robinson somehow. So I think Jovic plays a pretty good bit. We actually like to play centers against the Wizards too. So I think he's kind of in play. And yeah, I think Gabe has like a shot at 40, man. They love playing these guards on bigs. We see Kyle Lowry all the time guard power forward. So I think they're capable of putting him on Kuzma and using Gabe and Caleb Martin if he goes, assuming he does, out there. Should mention too, just digging in on the Spo quote. Bam is like less likely than Caleb and Dedmon, so it's not like a true doubtful situation. It's kind of like in between. But
Miami's pretty good at giving those indications. They have like the warm up with the intent to play stuff, so they're like pretty straightforward. And if we're getting like Bam closer, like more unlikely than the other guys this early in the day, I agree. Pessimistic, yeah.
Yeah, we just took him out of the projections, which is like right on the borderlines. My point is like, it's the first game, but just don't assume automatically that Bam's out. Is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, like you said, so many minutes for Lowry. We see the touches go way up when Jimmy's out, so he's a pretty good play and a really good matchup. We like to play guards against Wizards too, ISO kind of guards. So Max Strus, he has an ISO game. We don't really see it with the way they use him now, but Summer League Max Strus was legendary. So. I think Strus could really pop off here.
Yeah, they have bodies. I know they're missing a lot of guys, but as long as Caleb Martin and Dedmon play, they could extend out even to 10 if they wanted to. They have not shown any propensity to do so. They've basically been playing pretty 8 tight, but they've got Haywood Highsmith, they've got Orlando Robinson that they can dip into if they'd like. It is not the front end of a back-to-back. That was the first thing that I kind of looked for on Miami, was just to make sure that they didn't have a game tomorrow that they had to manage guys for. Jovic, not great international minutes rates, not great rates so far, but he did have really good rates in the preseason. So there's something to hang your hat on there if you're interested in Jovic. But we should know on Dedmon, on Bam, and on Caleb Martin in advance of lock, and that will dictate a lot of this on the Miami side. But yeah, expect really heavy minutes from these guys. Expect probably a lower scoring game on the whole as well. Even though Miami's defense takes a hit without Bam, without Jimmy, the offense is going to be slow, would be my guess. Like, it's just going to be hard for them to generate offense. And then guys that are a little bit off the radar that might, because of the direness of the situation, get on the radar as far as like dart throws and GPPs. I could also see Duncan Robinson, just if they need offense, getting to a point where, you know, maybe it's a hot night for Duncan Robinson and he gets upper 20s minutes and stuff like that. In terms of other injury situations, there's so many to go through today. Let's move to the Lakers, where LeBron James has been upgraded to questionable. Anthony Davis is probable. And then there's a couple other bodies that are getting back into the mix. It's unclear if these guys will play and be in the rotations right away, but Dennis Schroeder and Thomas Bryant are both going to be available. No Juan Toscano-Anderson tonight. So Gallagher, I'll start with you. What do you think the Thomas Bryant and Dennis Schroeder availability? Do you think they both move into the rotation immediately? Do you think, like, how does this shake out things for the Lakers with those two available?
I want to think that he's ahead of Wenyen Gabriel. They need shooting. Thomas Bryant's an excellent big man shooter, so I think he has an edge. I just don't have a read on the situation. We saw him getting, he was kind of prioritized based on the preseason scrimmage quotes that we were hearing from Ham. So if he's ready to go, I think he's good, but we don't really know how they're going to bring him along. They're going to play AD straight 5, just to throw that out there. But I think Schroeder makes some sense. He's basically moving into Kendrick Nunn's role. Not going to get big minutes. Cuts a little bit into Westbrook's usage. We know he's a little bit more of a higher usage player. We'll see how he adapts in this offense. Should be a pretty big way to adapt, although he has played with Westbrook before. And then, yeah, obviously Max Christie kind of goes away. He's out anyways, but yeah, I expect them to kind of run, basically those two guys filling in for those two roles, and shouldn't be affecting too many other guys, the Troy Browns, those guys.
And then, Justin, your thoughts on LeBron's availability tonight and if we'll see him play?
We'll see. I had my doubts, but the reports from Ham were optimistic yesterday. He said he looked great running and jumping. It was a non-contact practice yesterday, for what it's worth. I still lean a little bit more towards doubtful if I had a guess, even though the reports were really good, just given the initial reports of that injury, him being happy it wasn't a tear, and them probably wanting to play it a little safe. They're getting some bodies back tonight in Schroeder and Thomas Bryant, so we'll lean that way. Don't have a strong conviction on that, but yeah, we'll know what Gallagher said earlier. Ham said the plan is to continue to start Beverly, Lonnie Walker, Troy Brown Jr., LeBron, and AD, assuming LeBron's healthy.
So Schroeder and Bryant, we're talking about, even if they are in the mix, we're talking about like 16-minute rolls, 15, 12, something like that.
Yeah, Schroeder gets that Max Christie role or that former Kendrick Nunn role, and then like Gallagher talked about, Thomas Bryant maybe gets those Wenyen Gabriel minutes. Not sure if he's ready for like game action right away. They do like Wenyen Gabriel, so we'll see.
We'll just note, a lot of times the props market can be indicative of this stuff, but it looks to me like the props market is assuming that LeBron is not going to play based on some of the early props that I've looked at. So just a note there. Okay, other questionables. Gordon Hayward is questionable tonight. That was a little bit of an upgrade. LaMelo Ball ruled out with the ankle issue. And I don't know how much time we want to spend on LaMelo, but I have a lot of concerns around the way the season is shaping up for LaMelo, because if you've been watching him play, when he goes to the bench, he is just constantly working on his ankle, just constantly like rubbing it out and trying to get flexibility in blood kind of flowing through to the ankle. And, he plays a few games here, plays heavy minutes in his normal minutes, and then is right back out on the injury report. Charlotte is 4-12 to start the season. there's not a lot of good vibes going on around Charlotte right now. So I'll start there, Justin, with you with Gordon Hayward. What do you think the likelihood of him being able to return tonight is, and how would that shake things up for Charlotte?
Yeah, midday Q upgrade is generally a good sign, a good tell. They've been pretty straightforward, doubtful out with these guys. So a random question upgrade has to be, has to lead some optimism that he returns to the lineup tonight. So assume the lineup, if he's able to go, is Rozier, Oubre, Hayward, Washington, and Mason Plumlee. I guess one interesting rotation is Theo Maledon's been playing a pretty nice role off the bench, and he'll continue to play in that role with the Melo sideline. But yeah, I would expect Hayward to be limited. He's missed the last 8 games. We've seen Terry Rozier 29% usage so far this season in games without LaMelo Ball. And yeah, I think Oubre his workload has been very, very solid. You're swapping Hayward in for LaMelo, which is a net positive for him in terms of usage, but Kelly Oubre, last 5 games, he's played 34 minutes with a usage rate of at least 24% in every single one of those 5 games. So his role has continued to be solidified. And we'll note the Cavs are dead last in defensive rating over their last 5 games during their slide. Has obviously some coincidence with Jared Allen's injury. He's missed the last 2 games, and we'll talk about him too. He looks like he has a good chance to play tonight. So a little bit of a softer spot than maybe we think. There's still some fancy goodness to be had, even in a spot where we want to traditionally avoid a Cavs defense.
Yeah, I'll add, Hayward was playing through that shoulder injury, and he just takes so long to return from injuries. Bangs his knee in preseason practice, misses for basically the whole preseason. So for him to come out, I think they feel pretty good about him being out there for pretty close to normal minutes. And just with LaMelo, I mean, my God, rolls re-injures his ankle on stepping on a fan. Just the vibes just couldn't be worse. But yeah, you mentioned the Oubre thing. Oubre's going to be basically moves from a 3-ish, 2-ish to a lot of 2. They just have no guard depth there, which is low key helpful for PJ Washington. We've seen his mids really tick up. So I think, losing LaMelo and gaining Hayward also kind of helps him a little bit. PJ in a matchup, they're going to need a size too. So I think PJ could play a bit. And then, you pretty much nailed everything else.
Yeah, and the lack of guard depth is in large part due to not only LaMelo's absence, but Dennis Smith Jr. is listed as doubtful as well, so we're not expecting him to return. And that's why Theo Maledon has picked up a bigger role of late also. Justin mentioned the Jared Allen stuff. Justin sounded a little bit more optimistic on Allen's availability tonight. Gallagher, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think he's going to be back. He got the injury tag pretty early here, so I'm expecting him to come back, return to the starting lineup. One thing I am going to be watching is Karis LeVert's minutes, because Bickerstaff had some quotes about guys not buying into the system and so on. Didn't call anybody out by name, but I mean Karis LeVert, his minutes have been getting cut pretty hard, and we saw Lamar Stevens pick up a Giannis role. They're going to maybe need a little bit more size with the Hayward PJ Washington front court. So I wouldn't be surprised if LeVert gets cut.
Wow.
Is that too hot?
I'm surprised you're not on starter jersey watch, because we got a starter jersey watch this morning. Lamar Stevens was in the starter jerseys today.
Oh man, I am off my game today.
Yeah, you're off your game.
What have I? Oh man, I didn't even know that. I guess that's the universe telling me that starters jerseys are in. What a mistake, man. I gotta go. That's an L for you to take.
You got to get back on your game, Gallagher. This is
bad.
your territory. I was expecting you to lead with this.
I've been trying to check our minutes. I haven't been on Twitter for.
So Lamar, I would expect to start tonight. Garland, Mitchell, Lamar, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Allen was at shoot around this morning in a starter's jersey. He was at a local charity event last night too. Looked to have and it looks to be pretty up. Pretty healthy. So would expect him back in the lineup tonight. And yeah, Lamar Stevens is that change. I think it's only a matter of time before they kind of bump LeVert from that starting 5. They should have opted for a more defensive-minded wing to begin with. He just doesn't fit well with Garland and Mitchell, and he's better anyways in a microwave scoring role off the bench. So it was only a matter of time.
Yeah, something we talked about kind of coming into the season that we were all surprised by Karis LeVert being anointed the starter from the get-go. We thought Isaac Okoro would be the guy that would eventually take that role. Lamar Stevens jumping him is pretty disappointing from Okoro's perspective, but there just hasn't been a lot from Okoro this season. And then Jetty Osman, the other guy that kind of in the mix there that you would think like, oh, maybe he could kind of move up. But Jetty has a lot of the playmaking stuff that they would like in the second unit alongside Karis LeVert. So I think you have Karis LeVert, Jetty, Kevin Love in the second unit. You've got enough offense there. You don't need as much defense in the second units against other teams' second units. But in that first unit, the LeVert offense is just totally unnecessary and doesn't really add much, just saps possessions from Garland and Mitchell. So would not be surprised to see that type of change hold more than just tonight. Okay, let's go to Milwaukee, where Jrue Holiday is listed as questionable. Grayson got the probable tag. Pat Connaughton, who went from probable to out last game, is now out again. Not sure what happened on the injury reporting there with Connaughton side of things. Jrue has been out a bunch. We've seen the Bucks play without him quite a bit. We know it's been a lot of Javon Carter in his absence. Justin, do you expect to see Jrue Holiday tonight?
I don't have a good read. I thought he'd be back sooner than he's been. They've played like Atlanta and Cleveland in spots where I thought he had a good chance of coming back just because of the opponent. They played the Sixers tonight, another really good Eastern Conference team. So it's we haven't gotten much information. I haven't seen much. He's missed 4 games, been signed like 10 days now. So we'll see. I don't have a strong read. I thought he'd be back sooner rather than later, but would think he has a decent chance tonight. If he does go, would expect Jrue, Javon, Grayson, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. And Javon, I think we won't want to spotlight here. He's obviously been great, starting with that double OT game against OKC. But you look at his usage the last 4 games, 32, 24, 17, 15. That role continues to go down and down. He's starting to get more squeezed as they get healthier. They'll get Grayson Allen back tonight, it looks like. So the run has been great. Played the Javon Carter overs. That first game, OKC made me a lot of money, but we're kind of getting back to Javon of old, where he's more like a minutes filler than someone we're actually looking for as an option in DFS.
Yeah, I have no starter jersey info. I just checked the Bucks Twitter. I'm gonna have to check every Twitter account before we get into everything. I'm curious to see how many minutes he gets, because we saw him hang this is Javon Carter, mid-ish 20s. And Budenholzer talks him up all the time, unprompted. So I'm curious to see if that minutes role comes up. Obviously, if Jrue's, the role's not as important. I think they are going to put him on Maxey regardless. They like Jrue is more of the wingy kind of a guy, and Javon Carter, who's really had that, guarding guys bringing the ball up his whole career. So I'd expect him to pick up pretty good minutes and pick up, as you mentioned, low per minute, but a lot of minutes.
Yeah, and that the return of Jrue, if he does come back along with Grayson Allen, probably impacts MarJon Beauchamp the most, right? We've seen Beauchamp slide in that starting lineup. He's reached into the 30s a couple times in minutes. That role will be substantially less. Him and Jordan Nwora. Nwora has also been benefiting of late with some of these injuries and getting his minutes up there. Those are probably coming down. Justin, did you have any context to add to Pat Connaughton and what happened there with the probable back to out and early listing out again? Was there any sort of re-injury there, or was there just mistake?
No, I think it was a mistake in filing. I think he was getting ramped up and he just wasn't quite ready for game action. And they kind of reined it back a little bit, especially given how deep they are. They got MarJon Beauchamp emerging as a real legit wing option. So I think they're playing it more conservative and just waiting for him to be a little healthier.
Okay, great.
Just quickly on Jrue, I thought Drew's ankle injury was so minor, man, in that game. So it's like Paolo, it's just taking.
Yeah, Carroll's got a week, we actually have the Wembanyama possible tag for him, but what's Jrue?
Oh no.
Well, with Milwaukee, Chris Middleton was only supposed to miss the first few games at the start of the season as well, and there's been no Middleton update that suggests it's anytime soon. So the Milwaukee's been taking a really, really conservative approach on things. And I think they have every reason to. This is a team that's going to make a deep playoff run once again. They really don't have much in the way of competition at the top right now for seeding. It's just them in Boston, and nobody else is really kind of reaching into that range, especially with Cleveland with this 5-game losing streak now after starting out 8-1. On the other side of this Milwaukee game, Philadelphia, Tobias Harris gets listed questionable with a hip injury right after we fire some Tobias overs, which is always fun. Justin, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any details on when the injury occurred or what it's about?
Haven't really looked into it. It just kind of popped up. I didn't see anything in their last game where that stuck out to me, where he got bumped or he was, laboring a little bit with that hip. But midday Q tag downgrade, generally not a great thing.
Yeah.
We know with the Sixers track record, there's probably going to be a game time decision. We're not going to get a whole lot until before the game. So I believe that game is the early-ish at 7:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
So we should get word before lock at 7. But yeah, curious, what your guys' opinion of what they do with that starting lineup. Obviously, Anthony Melton was back last game, and they still started Matisse Thybulle. Do they go Melton Thybulle? Do they insert Daniel House? What do we think this rotation looks like if Tobias ends up missing?
So just with Tobias, on top of the midday Q tag, a midday Q tag when you haven't played since Sunday is something. So some concern there. Also, he had this is a hip soreness, left hip soreness. He had a left hip injury of 2021, so an injury he's had before, almost exactly a year. I think it was November 20th. So those are two things. I think Melton, I think it was kind of, an injury coming back, keeping his minutes down. He's been off for a little bit. He's been great. Their defense is really good. I think Melton should pick up that role. So I would lean him if Tobias is in. If he's out, I mean, probably both, right?
Both.
Yeah, I think they would fill that way. They've got they're going to need as much defense as they can get, I think. So, yeah, I would kind of lean that way.
Yeah, that would be my guess as well. And then in terms of who else could potentially slide into the rotation and benefit, obviously, if Tobias were out, you talk about usage and creation, and it would be the Joel Embiid show once again after scoring 100 points in a back-to-back setting over the course of the weekend. And then Tyrese Maxey would be the other guy that's able to pick up usage. He's been in a little bit of a shooting slump of late, but that also might make it so that into that second unit, you might see George Niang certainly would be a guy that could pick up minutes in terms of positionally, but they also might need some more from Shake Milton just in terms of scoring and potential offensive creation there. So there's a couple different things that you could see happen as a result of if Tobias is unavailable.
Okay, Isaiah Joe ruled out. Okay,
former Sixer, shut up.
On to Boston and Marcus Smart, who right before the show, Justin, you fired out the Marcus Smart had been ruled out. Brogdon is back here.
Mm-hmm.
I assume they're just going to start Derek White, and Brogdon's going to keep his main 25 minutes off the bench type role. What are your thoughts here with no Marcus Smart? I'll start with you, Justin.
Yeah, I don't think a whole lot changes. I think Derek White, I was on his overs last game. He gets scaled back a little bit today just with his minutes. Brogdon can take on more of a load than Peyton Pritchard. Isn't as much of a sieve defensively, so you feel good about him. Haven't heard of any sort of limitations on Brogdon. He said, before he was upgraded to available officially on the report, he said this morning personally that he was good to go. So would kind of expect, Peyton Pritchard to get bumped down quite a bit. Sam Hauser actually leads the league in plus minus this season, which is wild. That plus 35 last game certainly helped, but imagine he gets scaled back a little bit as well. But I don't think it's super out of the ordinary here to where we expect drastic change.
Yeah, bench smash. Luke Cornett goes 7-7 as well. So that was a really big win for them. Really impressive. Love me
really tilting for me. I was playing a lot of Boston guys in DFS. A lot of Jaylen Brown, who ends up doing really well on a point per minute basis, but ends up at just 23 minutes because of the foul trouble and the blowout. Atlanta just couldn't shut this team down. And I mean, 55% overall, 46% from three. It's going to be a tough comp.
Yeah, we were. I was doing a bunch of employee BR drafts at Underdog, and I had 100% Tatum and Jalen just because we talked about it on our show. I thought those guys had legit 40-minute potential if once they close, because I thought they would lean on their starters a lot more. Than they ended up blowing the Hawks out without
in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, it's just so tilting.
Yeah. On a big slate where there weren't many blowouts, it was immediate death. All right, Zion Williamson questionable for the Pelicans tonight. Gallagher, any thoughts on Zion's availability?
Definitely nervous here because it's Zion. I think anybody else, I'd feel pretty good about them playing, but haven't gotten too much information. Definitely think there's a chance he sits. Would assume they're going to go to Trey Murphy again, who's been fantastic. But yeah, obviously that helped Valanciunas. Predictably had a nice bounce back game. Willie Green says he liked him against Chicago. Tougher matchup. The Celtics, we were talking about how bad their defense was to start the year. They've been a lot better. 5th in the last 10 days. Their fourth quarter defense, when they turn up the heat, they've been very good. 5th there as well. So I think now I was surprised to see this over under so high. Honestly, I don't really like to bet over unders, but I won't be surprised. These are great offenses. Boston's number 1. I think the Pelicans are 5th, but yeah, I expect Zion. I think, I don't know. Did I miss anything? I missed starter strategy. I must have missed everything on Zion. Did I miss anything on Zion before it popped on here?
No, just the comments that they were hopeful he could have played on that second line of back-to-back, which he didn't. Foot contusion got reclassified. It was like a ankle foot issue before, and the official injury report, it got downgraded. I guess contusion's a little better than the original designation. So I think he has a decent shot at playing this one, just given the comments from Willie Green about, last game, though it is Zion and they're always going to be cautious with him. So yeah, we've seen, CJ McCollum really take the lead. Brandon Ingram's been a bit of a disappointment in this one, but yeah, CJ 27% usage, 37 minutes per game in the last two without Zion. So if we're looking at one guy, between, I guess, CJ, Ingram and Valanciunas here, assuming Zion does not play, who would you be interested in the most?
I like Brandon Ingram today. I think Derek White is not a downgrade on Marcus Smart. He's been very impactful defensively. Brandon Ingram kind of the path of least resistance there against, just a good defense overall. I'd rather have kind of the ISO get your own score. CJ has that too, but I think this is kind of a Brandon Ingram spot. And I'll mention, I don't like Valanciunas there. I think Valanciunas could get nuked. Boston loves to attack mismatches. You want to play switchy defenses there, so it's definitely a Larry Nance kind of a role game for me. So just to add that there. So I do not want to bet Larry Nance unders today.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is if this matchup dictated more Larry Nance, which I think it does as well. Let's get into Dallas and Denver. On the Dallas side of things, Reggie Bullock, JaVale McGee listed probable. Maxi Kleber still out. They will get Luka Doncic back. I think we did a pretty good job at handling the Dallas situation last time when they were on the second night of a back-to-back, and there was reports of them being willing to play kind of everybody. And we cautioned that, hey, you could get, more spread out minutes than you might be expecting. With Luka back, is it pretty straightforward in terms of a return to what we've seen before, Justin?
Yeah, I would expect that. And we saw that they were in the stretch of I think it was like 3 games, 4 days or something like that too. And there was already talk heading in that they would, and Dinwiddie was a rest candidate potentially as well. So would expect them to be back to normal tonight. The Stars minutes back to normal. Christian Wood, not getting enough minutes back to normal as well across the board. So Christian Wood had his come out revenge game against the Rockets. He enjoyed that, but it's time for the regular rotation to return in this one.
Yeah, that was crazy. Spencer looked gassed, man. He had no lift on his shot. He was he looked like a high schooler shooting it. It just didn't look right. And yeah, got blocked 19 times. If that doesn't tell you that you just had no legs that day, then nothing else really does. So,
that's an incredible stat.
Season high, 19 blocks, and they were fun. I mean, it was a really entertaining game. As someone who had the Rockets in this one, it was more entertaining. But one thing I want to mention too is Tim Hardaway Jr. Minutes role wasn't really big, but Jason Kidd talking about someone having to help. I mean, they put so many low usage guys out there with Luka and Spencer, and if you need to take a little bit of offensive load off them, I mean, it's clearly got to be THJ, who just looked fantastic in this game against Houston. Certainly the easiest matchup or one of them. So I expect TJ, who and Bullock's also cooled off a little bit with that injury. So I think if Bullock doesn't play, they'll probably start Green. But the guy I'd want to look to here is Tim Hardaway Jr. in a matchup that I think they could take advantage of, with Denver being really shorthanded, throwing in a lot of new bodies. And I could see Malone kind of having a furious post-game presser just saying, why did Tim Hardaway Jr. rip us?
That's what I wanted to get into because, they just haven't gotten a lot of shooting from Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock during the course of the year. Those guys have shot the ball really poorly from three relative to expectation. And they're getting as clean looks as you can get in the league with the looks that Luka generates. And so I'm wondering if you start to see Tim Hardaway Jr. kind of slowly tick up. He's the next guy that you can play. Obviously, the defense takes a step down, a step backwards relative to Bullock and Finney-Smith, but you can keep one of Bullock and Finney-Smith out there, have Tim Hardaway Jr. out there, and then mix those guys into the second unit with Christian Wood and Dinwiddie that have a little bit less defense and have a little bit more offense. I think that makes natural sense over time, which means I wouldn't be surprised to see Tim Hardaway Jr.'s baseline minutes expectation creeping up to like 28, 29 instead of the 24, 25 we've seen early in the season.
Yep. And should add, they don't need, and we're just finding out right now that Aaron Gordon was not at shoot around, literally just came out. So and I'll add to that, I mean, they don't need depth on ball handling defense. You got Bones Highland, who we'll talk about probably right about now. So it's certainly a situation where, as you mentioned, they could just run DFS out there as the ball pressure guy and then just load up on offense.
Yeah. Onto the Denver side of things, you mentioned Aaron Gordon is listed questionable, but now being reported that he did not go through shoot around today. No Jamal Murray in health and safety protocols. No Nikola Jokic in health and safety protocols. This is a really depleted Nuggets team that just lost a game that they were largely in control of against the Knicks at home. Now they place a Dallas team with Luka well rested. Not a great spot here. And this, I will say, there's a couple spots on this slate that are extremely difficult to do and figure out the rates on guys because you just haven't seen situations like this very much. Miami, one of them, when trying to figure out what their team looks like without potentially Bam, Jimmy, and Hero. Not a lot of minutes without all three of those guys. And then the Nuggets, not a lot of minutes with this iteration of the roster without Jokic and Murray. There's just not much to feed on. So, Bones Highland's carried a really high usage rate in the second unit all year long, a really high assist rate. He's the one guy kind of left offensively if Aaron Gordon's not available that can create his own shot easily. Michael Porter Jr., as I alluded to last time we did the content, that he has not seen the big uptick in usage rate that Jamal Murray had when Jokic was out. This is going to be a spot where Bones is probably going to have all that he can handle. But it's always a little bit tricky projecting a guy who's got like a near 30% usage rate in a bench situation going into his starting lineup. Granted, this starting lineup is not much different than the bench guys he's playing with. So, Justin, I'll start with you. I assume that this news on Aaron Gordon makes it sound like he's less likely to play than.
And you look at what's going around there with that illness. Obviously, Jamal just got added to health and safety protocols recently. He's out. And when you assess the situation, definitely blowout risk here. 9-point spread already on the road at Dallas. They're getting, a fresher Luka back tonight too. And man, you're assuming without Gordon, that starting lineup is probably Bruce Brown, KCP, MPJ, Jeff Green, and DeAndre Jordan. Yeah. And obviously Bruce Brown and MPJ are the ones that stand out for me in that starting lineup, but minutes downside for sure in this spot. I have some trepidation kind of going there. And with Bones, I think he's a little bit more safer. Like he's coming off the bench, 33% usage rate last game. And that was with Jamal Murray. So, his usage should be, outrageous once again. You look at that second unit, it's like Zeke Naji, Christian Brown, Chonchar, and Devon Reed, like very few guys who are out there taking a lot of shots. So, yeah.
So you do not think Bones slides into the starting lineup?
I don't. I would have it. Yeah, like I said, Bruce Brown, KCP, MPJ, Jeff Green, and DeAndre Jordan. I think. Go ahead, Gallagher.
I think kind of both, Bruce and Bones, for a couple of reasons. Bruce can guard Luka, and then you don't really need too many other defenders in size out there with how small the Mavs go all around. So I think it makes sense to go that way and just play them all you can. You're shorthanded anyways. You might as well.
So you're thinking cut Jeff Green from the mix is what you're thinking?
I think so. And Malone is very much a first unit, second unit guy. It's the second unit now. That's all that's left. The second unit is like basically the first unit. So I think he would go that way, just given the matchup. Just some quotes to add too. DeAndre Jordan was, quote, gassed at some point in the game, and then we saw Zeke Naji's minutes come up a little bit. I'm going to wait for Zeke at the end. And you mentioned that Aaron Gordon wasn't expected to play, so this is not surprising. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I thought it was like, woe is me, we got killed, we may not have Aaron Gordon again. And just with Bones, played late, coming off COVID. He had all these checkpoints he had to clear, and he cleared them all and got out there and played. And Bones was, quote, keeping us alive, and he was, quote, the only guy who could put the ball in the hole for us. So he's going to be putting some balls in some holes today. Really, really love me some Bones today. I think he's, even if he doesn't start, it'll be probably a pretty quick sub.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a spot that's going to be ripe for fantasy value just because you take away Nikola Jokic, you take away Jamal Murray, and there's just tons of available points. It's hard for the sites to adjust the pricing well enough, quickly enough. You take away Aaron Gordon as well, and that's another. But as Justin alluded to, lots of blowout risk. So
yeah, I'll just say I am thinking Bones second unit just because, like you said, Malone's like a first, second unit guy. We saw this in LA with Ham and Russ when they're really short. Russ still came off the bench. So I think these coaches are kind of just stubborn, just trying to stick with what they want to do. And he's going for like the vets, obviously, in that front court with Jeff Green and DeAndre Jordan. So, it does make sense for sure for Bones to start just because they're desperate for offense in that first unit without Jamal and Jokic. But that's just where I'm coming from. He's going to kind of stick with that lineup.
I don't think Bruce could like facilitate an offense all that well. And that's and Mike Malone has really talked a lot about the foundation of their offense being in the second unit being a DeAndre Jordan, Bones pick and roll offense as their foundation. So I think that's just kind of how they have to lean into it. And of course, Zeke Naji is going to play so many minutes. We've seen him guard guards all the time. He got the Steph Curry matchup at some point last year. Zeke's. I'm curious what his price is, but definitely against a team with a switchy defense, it's like a very much a Zeke Naji kind of a matchup, and he'll probably play some 4 as well. So really, really, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts at the 4, honestly, in this matchup. So
the only reason I'd be surprised on that is just I think they've got to keep DeAndre's minutes down this game generally. So it's just not a DeAndre Jordan spot at all. Not that there are DeAndre Jordan spots.
There's never a DeAndre Jordan spot.
Let's move over to Phoenix, where Chris Paul and Josh Okogie are questionable. We've seen Phoenix kind of take their time with this Chris Paul injury. We thought he might come back last game, ended up not. Campaign had another huge effort. Mikal Bridges, another great effort. They handily disposed of the Warriors, even with Steph putting up 40 plus on them. So I'll start with you, Gallagher. What are your thoughts on Chris Paul's availability tonight?
Yeah, I think he's got a good chance. We saw him do some shoot-around stuff on Wednesday, and it looked like he was kind of leaning in, and then John Gabardoro, local radio guy, had mentioned he was unlikely to play. Shout out to him. That report was very nice to help us get the Mikal Bridges overs. Wish we hit more of them. But I think he's got a pretty good chance to play. He's had, he's had almost 2 weeks off with this thing, certainly being cautious. I think he's got a pretty good chance to be out there.
Justin, what are your thoughts there?
This is like the Drew Holiday thing too. Like
you
kind of think they're back sooner, and the absence just kind of lingers, and these teams are able to be more cautious with them just because they're in, not in any danger of missing the playoffs. They're thinking more long term. So it's Utah tonight. I think they might be able to afford to sit them out this one and still win this one. So at this point where we're going on these shows and saying we think there's a good chance tonight because they've been out for so long, they're still out. I'm not going to fall in that trap, and I think there's a decent chance he's out again tonight, just given how long it's kind of dragged out to this point.
All right, Kevin Porter Jr., a new questionable tag for Houston, and one that would be pretty important to the slate just because we haven't seen Houston play really shorthanded this year. Justin, what are your thoughts on Kevin Porter Jr.'s availability?
Yeah, so KPJ took a hit in the back on Wednesday during the third quarter, played through it. I think he was like just short of a triple-double that game, so played pretty well. He was at shoot-around this morning, but just at shoot-around to get treatment on his back. He was seen with like a pretty big wrap on that back. So just given, what we saw from that, I think there's a decent chance that he does end up missing. He does end up playing through a lot of this stuff, but if he does end up playing, we want to keep an eye on like the locker room aggravation risk, which has happened in the past before with KPJ. But if he does end up missing, I would think KJ Martin would slide in the starting lineup. We would see a backcourt of Jalen Green and Eric Gordon, more run for Daishan Nix and Josh Christopher as well. But really just over the last 2 seasons with KPJ off the court, the biggest beneficiary has really been Eric Gordon in terms of usage, in terms of fantasy production. So I would give him a decent bump. He's never really a guy that we're considering just because he's playing next to some of these higher usage guys. Would also mention that Jalen Green is starting to show a little bit more chemistry in that 2-man game with Şengün. assisting him and things like that. So they've been working well together. So would think those two would benefit as well if KPJ ends up missing.
Jalen Green, cover boy for me today on matchups.
There you go.
I love him today, regardless of KPJ. Obviously, if KPJ doesn't play, they are building their offense around getting in the paint with this high screens from Şengün. If KPJ doesn't play, he's going to get pick and roll every time. Andrew Nembhard can't guard him. Jalen Green smash day. I love it.
All right. There we have it.
My guy. Forgot to say that.
Jonathan Kuminga, questionable for Golden State. It's unclear if he's even in the rotation these days. Justin, any read here on either of those? If he's likely available tonight, and then if he's even in the rotation at this point.
Yeah, so he just came out with a quote before we got on the air that basically said he is going to play. And you can we went more conservative, and I expected to be available to play. And I said to be available just because I don't know if he's going to be in the rotation. But yeah, I mean, we've kind of seen this bench unit. It's basically like a 4+1. Like they love Anthony Lamb, DiVincenzo, Jordan Poole, JaMychal Green, and then you might get some Moses Moody or some Jonathan Kuminga. Right now, I will lean towards Kuminga not being in the rotation, just because they've been talking up JaMychal Green and them needing to play him more. Specifically, Steve Kerr has talked about JaMychal Green, so that's why went available to play, just because I think it's more likely Kuminga's out of rotation at this point than in.
Yeah, I agree. The most telling thing to me on top of the stuff he said was when Kerr talked about Wiseman going away, he said he wanted to get JaMychal Green at center with shooting. Mm-hmm. I don't think Kuminga shoots. Nope. So, or he does shoot, he just doesn't make them. So, I feel pretty confident that he's on. We throw him like 4 or 5 minutes just cause, but I think it's more than likely he is gonna sit out. And I just want to hit this Warriors team, man. The home road splits, which are normally pretty stupid, are ridiculous, man. They are 29th away from chasing defense, and then they are second at home. It's just ridiculous. This team is just complete opposite. I'm betting them. I think they come out firing. I think Steph maybe drops 50 again. We've seen guards kill the Knicks. I think 5 guys have scored 31 or more on them. So
they give up a decent amount of open threes too, I hear. So it lines up. Yeah. I don't know if Steph shoots threes, but it might line up well with the game.
Yeah, the one note I'd have on Kuminga is one thing working in his favor tonight is the Knicks tend to play bigger in the front court as well, and that's like a unit with Obi Toppin and Jericho Sims or Isaiah Hartenstein, and so that might be a matchup that facilitates his size a little bit more out there. But reaching and grasping at straws for Kuminga to even get in the rotation. On to some notable probables and returns on the Bulls side of things. Kobe White and Patrick Williams both listed probable. We've seen in Kobe White's absence that the rotation has been a little bit more settled. You've seen Patrick Williams' minutes improve. You've seen Goran Dragic have a pretty stable role. Alex Caruso, just throwing in an extra body into the mix could potentially mess things up a little bit. What are your thoughts here, Justin?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. It lowers the minutes floor and the variance of a lot of these players. If they're not playing well, to get pulled, to just have an extra body to throw out there. So Patrick Williams floor, Caruso, Dragic, some of these other guys. It's just it's another guy that they're going to play. It's not like a Kuminga where they're going to not play Kobe White. If Kobe White's healthy, he's going to be in the rotation. So definitely takes back for some of these guys in there.
Really tricky matchup against all that Orlando size. They like to use Caruso almost as like a 4 when he gets subbed in. And I'll add, Patrick Williams is like the reverse Drew Holiday Paolo because he rolled his ankle pretty good. And I thought he was going to miss this one. So to hear him say he's going to play, it's nice to see for a guy who's had some injuries. But I'm curious. And they need to play. Like I said, they need size. So I think he could play a pretty good amount of minutes.
This is a very interesting matchup for the Bulls. Just generally teams that have been able to, Orlando's been so Jekyll and Hyde defensively, but teams that have given Orlando problems are teams that, can shoot from distance pretty well. And teams that get a lot of their stuff at the rim are teams that they're a little bit better at handling because they've got so much size in there. But the Bulls, they're a lot of mid-range, right? It's a lot of mid-range stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see how DeMar and Zach handle kind of the length. guys that they can get past on first steps. And we should note on the Orlando side of things in this matchup, Wendell Carter Jr. upgraded to probable in his revenge game spot, and Gary Harris upgraded to probable. Looks like he's going to be able to make his season debut. I would expect some sort of minutes limitation on Gary Harris, but this Orlando team is desperately in need of backcourt defense. They've got it in the other spots, but they're just getting killed by turnovers in backcourt defense. Justin, what are your thoughts on Gary Harris in terms of minutes expectation tonight?
Yeah, so Wendell said he'll play. So he's in. We'll note he's averaged in 5 games against the Bulls 22, 9, and 3.5. So Wendell Carter revenge is very much a thing. Gary Harris, I think mid-teens, maybe high teens, if that. Very slow on his return. This is a pretty significant injury. They've been riding their starters pretty heavy. So he's like in that, Kevon Harris, RJ Hampton, Caleb Houston, mix of soaking up some of those minutes. And those guys didn't play that much. I think Kevon was like 6 and RJ was like 10 the last game or something like that. So, just siphon some of those minutes out and clean up the rotation a little bit. Eventually, he'll be like lower 20s or something, I would imagine, as he continues to ramp up. But yeah, Wendell being back, obviously, bump Mo Bamba back to his usual backup center reserve role.
Yeah, just with Gary Harris, messed his knee up in August, had arthroscopic and a meniscus trim on, I think, September 1st, which is normally about an 8-weeker. He's been doing on-court work since late September, so he's had time to ramp up here. We put him at 18 minutes. I think 20s, just because, like I said this in Slack, how down bad are they with on-ball defense? They're RJ Hampton down bad.
Yeah.
That's how desperate they are for ball pressure. So Gary Harris has picked up that role. Mike Malone really liked him for that. So I just think the need of him out there, they're certainly going to play him, not a lot of minutes, but I think he'll basically have, RJ Hampton plus, maybe cutting into like RJ Hampton and Kevon Harris, who also picks up some on-ball defense. It's just like such a need to have him out there, even though he hasn't been as good as he was a couple years ago.
Yeah. Other new injury notes, just to mention, Jordan Goodwin for Washington is out. They originally listed him questionable, and we thought that was a shaky questionable tag. It was pretty early corrected to out. He's been eating into more of a role, specifically with Monty Morris. So this should help stabilize Monty Morris a little bit. But also, they just got Bradley Beal back last game, so they have guard depth to overcome this. You saw Kispert and Barton really get hit hard last game as Denny Avdija played pretty well. Tonight, I would expect Barton and Kispert's minutes to rebound in the absence of Jordan Goodwin. Any thoughts there, Justin?
Nope, you covered it. Goodwin's played well. I mean, he's carved out a good role, and he's earned those minutes for sure. So should see those go back to Barton and Kispert in the interim. Would not be surprised if Goodwin has to miss a couple games with that injury. Did not look good. Went for further testing. We had him doubtful, I think, on the back end initially after it happened. So not a surprise he's out tonight. Yeah,
he was announced to get testing after the game. That's from a knee injury. There's he's going to miss time. I think that was pretty shady Q tag. So who does he affect, right? He Monty Morris, and you always get worried about Monty Morris against guards who could really get in the paint and crush. Miami is not really going to play like that. So Monty Morris could be really good. I think Denny's good too, because Gordon's defensive role is a lot of on-ball stuff, and they've really made Denny their on-ball guy. He got graveyard, got put in a cemetery after SGA lit him up the other night. But I think his minutes are helped just a teensy bit there. And I don't know. I don't think Kispert's going to play that much. He just doesn't really fit. He helps for spacing. They don't need it. Bradley Beal should mention too. When he returned, he said in the first half he didn't have his wind, and then he got it afterwards. Still gets 37 minutes when he didn't have his wind. He could play a lot. He did say COVID affected him more this time than it did last year. So I think Beal could really play a lot. And I almost made him my cover boy too. So I think Beal's in a pretty good spot. That's a little bit dependent on Bam, because Chris Stapps against Jovic, oh boy, could get real ugly.
Yeah, Beal's on that Darius Garland short stints plan. You know how that goes.
Nice.
And then the only other note that Gallagher you had in our rundown was Mitchell Robinson out again tonight. Any additional notes you wanted to add there for the Knicks center?
I think
position?
He's doubtful. I don't know if I put that down there.
He got upgraded to doubtful.
Okay.
Yeah. But one thing I do want to note is 9-man rotation. They're not and Thibodeau said after the game they're kind of locked into it. He said Cam Reddish having this role solidified in a 9-man rotation has really helped him. We see the 37 minutes he closes over RJ Barrett, along with Emmanuel quickly. In the small ball lineup as well, we saw the Obi Toppin Randall stuff kind of pop a little bit in a matchup where they don't need the rebounding. That's why Tibbs doesn't go that way. So I think we could see a pretty good bit of Obi, Reddish, quickly. And he mentions some people aren't right. He didn't mention anyone by name. People kind of going through stuff. He said this has to be about RJ Barrett, who has been just a total disaster. Shout out to Gary
has an illness that he's been battling as well.
Yeah. He talked about that illness after the game. He said it feels like bleep. So he's shooting like that as well. I think I think it's like 19 straight threes or something like that. Pretty crazy.
It's so bad.
Yeah. I think he's been sick for a few years.
Shams had a report today too that they're looking to shop Derrick Rose or quickly to kind of clear up some of that log jam in that backcourt. So
yeah, they need to for sure. Okay, I think we've done it. We've gone through all the spots. Gallagher wants you all to know that we want to talk about OKC and Isaiah Joe because we're all betting OKC tonight. Well, at least Gallagher and I are. Fan, are you on the OKC train tonight? +6.
I'm there. I'm already there because OKC is maybe more money on the spread than any other team has by far. I'm the biggest OKC fan of all time. No convincing needed here.
There we go.
I should add too a quote from Mark Dagnall that he really kind of singled out Jalen Williams, fans guy, which still irks me. The minutes were still pretty good off the bench. We saw passing. What the hell? Where was this 2 games ago when we had his assist over? But I think his role is really good. Matchup's tricky, right? You got Steven Adams. I think they go big. They kind of go to the thick rather than the slim version. So I think Jeremiah Robinson Earl gets back in that starting lineup and Poku over guarding Jaren Jackson. But yeah, really excited to see J-Dub out there. Still can't believe he's not my guy, and still can't believe I haven't been fined for it yet, which is quite incredible.
The Poku experience continues on. 14 minutes one night, 38 minutes the next. Yep. You never know what you're getting with Poku. He's like a box of chocolates.
He got benched at half too. We should mention too because it feels like he just has no chance at center. Like if the centers are going off on him, it's curtains. So this is not a Poku spot. We saw him handle Al Horford pretty well. But yeah,
we'll see about Funaki tonight. Before we get out of here, now that we've covered it all, as a reminder, support the people who support us. This show is brought to you by the good folks over at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts. They have NFL contests going, playoff contests specifically that I really enjoy playing, running for huge prizes. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers to the DFS content, ETR can use our ETR projections table to compare to the Pick'em lines, and you can play those fantasy games over at Underdog. You can use the promo code ETR at deposit for a $100 deposit match bonus on your first $100 deposited. Promo code ETR at checkout at underdogfantasy.com. Make sure to support them. If you're interested in supporting more of our content, myself and Cash Game Gary, Norm Powell has still not cleared 35 fantasy points in a game, so Cash Game Gary will still be joining me in Not GPP Bro Gary on tonight's premium DFS show at 5 o'clock Eastern. We'll run through all the DFS implications of tonight's slate, all 11 games, game by game. And if you are uninterested in supporting us from a premium paid side, you can always support us with your wonderful clicks. We love them. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you get notifications whenever we go live and continue to support the content that we're providing here. And if you like this video and content that we're playing, please make sure to smash that like button. As always, when you go into the weekend, hungry, you feed that algo, nom, 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 feed those bank accounts with the props and the DFS, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.